He's adding to the chat the FAQs that you guys asked in that survey, and we are also adding a walkthrough of what we're covering today. And then Melissa will add the link to the website for MLSS for APS. So you guys should be getting some resources coming through. So I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so we only have 30 minutes and MLSS is massive. So I'm going to talk quickly over this quick PowerPoint, and then Keith is going to show you how to build a plan, because I think that's what everybody wants to see. And then we will have time for Q&As. So if we can save the questions to the end, unless it's like a dire need, like something's going on, let us know. But we're going to try to move quickly because we only have 30 minutes. So welcome to the MLSS presentation. MLSS stands for multi-layer of system of support. You'll also hear MTSS, which is multi-tier system of support. So it's national verbiage and state verbiage. So if you hear any of those acronyms, they mean the exact same thing. So MLSS for New Mexico is really looking at the whole child. In the classroom, we now have layers, but we also go outside the classroom to school supports, to the community supports, family supports, and health and wellness supports. So we're really looking at the child in a new light, and it's really important because the more we know about a child, the easier it is for teachers to teach to that child. So MLSS is replacing RTI. So RTI has retired. RTI was very rigorous, had a lot of time frames, a lot of minutes, a lot of steps that you had to take. MLSS is more empowering to our classroom teachers because we are able to help the child where they are, when they need it, and with whichever layer they need it at that time. So there's 3 layers within MLSS, and they're very fluent. So layer 1 is core instruction. Layer 2 is core plus targeted interventions, and then layer 3 is that core plus targeted plus intensive interventions. So students can go from layer 1 to layer 3, back down to layer 2, or they might go from layer 3 to layer 1. So as the classroom is starting to see the need for that student, they can put the student in the appropriate layer based on the data they have inside their classroom. So it's very fluent. So just to remind everybody why we're here because of child find laws. Child find is the responsibility of a school district to locate, identify, and evaluate children of having a suspected disability. So a lot of people think of child find and they think of pre-K. Actually, child find is 3 to 21, so that's all the children that we service through APS. You'll have a list there of other students that we're talking about, but it's important to realize that MLSS is really helping us identify and locate these children, and it's up to us teachers to know that now we have identified the child, and now we need to put interventions in place for that child and determine if there is a suspected disability or that child just needs more time to grasp those interventions inside the regular ed classroom. So I'm going to go quickly over the layers. So layer one is for all students, whether they be regular ed or special ed. Layer 1 is that high quality differentiated core curriculum. It's school-wide positive and behavior intervention and supports. It's data driven. It has targeted interventions within the core curriculum. It's your universal screeners like iStation, iReady, and it's your English language development for your English learners. So basically, layer 1 is that best first teach you possibly can give to that student, knowing exactly what we know about that kid. And with MLSS, we're really starting to see the full picture. So we're starting to see mental health and wellness. We're starting to see nursing. We're starting to see attendance. We're starting to see all these informations that sometimes were siloed before, and now it's all coming together as one clear picture through the MLSS module. So it's nice to be able to understand who we're teaching. So layer 2 is students that are grade level trajectory, which means these are students that are 1 year behind in their education. So layer 2 is 1 year behind. And layer 2 really focuses on that differentiated instructions and sheltered instructions in a smaller group session. So there is no minutes for layer 2, and there's no time frame for layer 2. So a student can be on layer 2 for 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 10 weeks, or they could be on layer 2 for their whole entire educational career. So really, with really good targeted interventions by that classroom teacher, that student can catch up to grade level quickly. We're just closing that few gaps that that child has in their education. So in layer 2, we are progress monitoring biweekly, which means twice a month. And teachers are really having a conversation with themselves. They can have a conversations with fellow teams about, do they want to continue to layer 2 intervention because it's working and the kid needs more time? Do they need to exit layer 2 and maybe go back to layer 1? Or does the student really need intensive interventions and they move on to a layer 3? So that's the classroom teacher's decision. You don't have to have any kind of SAT meetings or permission. You're just moving your child based on your professional judgment of where that child needs to go next. Layer 2 plan can be a grade level intervention, or it can also relate back to your 90-day plan. So if all third graders need this intervention based on school data, then you guys can put all your third graders that are needing layer 2 on that intervention. So layer 2, you can add multiple kids to the plan. You can add up to 25 kids to a layer 2 plan. Okay, so layer 3. Layer 3 is our old school tier 2. It's really that intensive intervention for that student given in small groups. Its time intensity are increased. So this layer, we do have the minutes, and it's 90 to 120 minutes for elementary. Middle school and high school, the state is a little bit more lenient because we know we only see those kids an hour a day, sometimes every other day, depending on their schedule. So those minutes are 60 to 120 minutes for middle school and high school. We need to make sure we're giving immediate feedback and we're giving opportunities for students to give their feedback, and not necessarily verbal feedback. It can be Google site feedback. It can be a nonverbal feedback. It might be coming in at a different time and giving feedback, but students need to be able to give feedback. So layer 3, the students are monitored bi-weekly again, and you're basically determining again if you're continuing with layering 3 interventions, which a student can be on layer 3 for their whole entire career. Are you going to move to layer 2? Maybe the child's getting it and they can go back to their classroom teacher and work on this if they were in an intervention class, or they might be moving to layer 1. So layer 3 can be given by the classroom teacher, or it can be given by a interventionist or a Pacific layer 3 class. So if you have a Lit Strat class or a Read 180 class or a reading or math interventionist, that's where this time would be put into place for the layer 3 plans. And if the layer 3 plan is created in those classes, so if it's a Read 180 student, then the Read 180 teacher would create the layer 3 plan. So the interventionist would create those plans and work with those kids. So that would meet their needs. So everybody's most interested question is, where is SAT? So MLSS is not necessarily SAT. SAT is a small sliver of the MLSS process, and really after layer 3 is where SAT happens. So SAT is at the end of layer 3. We are using layer 3 plans to have a meeting. Students don't have to redo any kind of interventions or plans. The layer 3 plan is the plan that we're looking at the SAT meeting. So once the teacher is done with layer 3, they ask their SAT chair to schedule a SAT meeting. At that SAT meeting, we look at their progress. We look at the intervention that was chosen. We make sure it's appropriate. There is some forms on the request for support that they have to fill out, like the dyslexia checklist, the student observation form, the EL consideration form if they're E in Synergy. And that's mainly the 3 forms that they have to fill out as a classroom teacher. And then at that SAT meeting, if we feel as a team that the student does need to move on to an evaluation, then we would complete the PWN, which is a prior written notice, and move that child on to an evaluation. Also at the SAT meeting, we will have a SAT relay diag at the meetings now. And the SAT relay diag's job is to get informal consent from the parent and schedule the testing. So as we leave our SAT meetings now, we know exactly when testing is going to happen and occur for that child. So that's helpful as a classroom teacher. Just remember that while we're waiting for testing, layer 3 interventions never stop. So we are going to continue giving layer 3 interventions to that child until they're either placed in special education Or if they did not qualify for special education, then they would come back to layer 3 plans. So SAT is at the end of this process. So really, teachers are empowered to move their child up and down those layers as they need to without a ton of meetings, without permission. So it's very empowering for teachers. Layer 3 plans also can have multiple kids on there. So you can add more than one kid. You can actually add up to 25. But you have to remember that those kids need to be getting the same intervention, have the same skills deficit, start at the same time, and have the same assessment. So that's how you have to provide that individualized plan for that student. But the the layer 3 plans do allow you to have multiple plans. So that was a lot. Sorry, that was fast and furious. I will post this into the chat. And now I'm going to turn it over to Keith, and he's going to work on creating a plan for you guys. Mute.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Keith Montano. I'm a district SAT liaison as well. I'm going to demonstrate how a teacher would go in and build an MLSS plan through Synergy. I'm going to just demonstrate in the Synergy training environment. The Synergy training environment's nice because teachers can go in and they can build plans without actually impacting the students in Synergy. So it's a good practice environment to work on building plans. As I log in, you're going to see it's a mirror image of Synergy, and everything in Synergy training is very similar to what it would actually look like in the Synergy module.
We're waiting.
Yeah. There it goes. Finally. Okay. Okay, so once it's loaded, directly from the seating chart, the teacher can initiate an MLSS plan on a student. So what they'll do is they'll, of course, select the student they want to initiate the plan on, click on that student's profile picture, you'll get this menu, and they just click Add MTSS Plan. So once they click Add MTSS Plan, it's going to open the plan. And this should be a blank plan ready to start fresh on this student, okay? So on the plan, you're going to see that there's multiple tabs here. There's the MLSS plan tab, student plan history, referral info, area of concern, staff participants, documents, plan meeting, progress monitoring, and then plan outcome. So when creating a plan, the teacher's always going to start on the first tab, which is the MLSS plan tab. Sometimes the tabs are on the left and the plan's on the right. Right now in the format, it's showing the tabs are above and then the plan's down here underneath. So Synergy opens it differently at different times, but just know you can navigate through the different parts of the plan up here. The one important thing I do want to point out is when a teacher is building a plan, they're generally going to be working on this first tab, the MLSS plan. Then they're going to build the intervention in the area of concern, and then they're going to enter progress monitoring down here in progress monitoring. They're not going to really be working in the other tabs very often. So since I'm in the first tab, the first thing the teachers do is they give their plan a plan name. So let's just do layer 3. I'm going to do a reading plan just for demonstration. All right, reading. You'll put the grade level, grade. I don't know what grade the student I'm actually working in is, but I'm just going to put grade 2, and then I'm using a demonstration from Sierra Vista Elementary. So we're recommending the teachers put the layer, the area of concern, the grade level of the student, and then the school. After that, they have to select a plan type. So we're working on layer 3. So it's a nice little drop down. They select layer 3. Whoever's creating the plan, whoever's they're logged in as, will automatically populate created by. The next one is we select the length of plan. So for demonstration, we're going to start with 6 weeks in length. So you'll notice that automatically the start date is today's date. And then the end date is going to be 6 weeks from today. If you know there's a break, let's say spring break falls in here, and you want to make sure you get 6 weeks of data, you can always extend your plan out to 7 weeks, and that'll take into account that week that the students are out. Or if a student gets sent home for quarantine and they miss 10 days, you can always come back to this tab. And even if you selected 6 weeks, you can extend it out to 8 weeks if you need be, just to give yourself enough time to collect the adequate amount of data in the plan. Another nice feature about this is if you've already started the intervention, you can actually go back to the date you started the intervention. So let's say I've already been providing the intervention for 2 weeks. I started it on January 25th. I can select January 25th as my start date, and then your end date will update automatically 6 weeks from the start date. So there's some flexibility here, which is nice. Even once I save this, it's not set in stone. You can always come back to this tab and adjust it accordingly. If things do happen, if a kid's absent, they miss, and you can extend that here. The student you selected should automatically populate here for student name. So once you see their name here, you just click save. And this is kind of a little glitch in Synergy. So you have to actually scroll down again. And now you'll see the student's profile picture there. And you would click save again. You have to click save twice. The first time it selects the student, the second time it actually saves it with their profile picture. And teachers are allowed to add multiple students to a plan as well. So if they're doing the same intervention for multiple students, this is where they would also add additional students from their class. So when they click the drop down, it's going to show all of the students in their class, and they would just select the other student. Let's say we're doing this student here, and it'll add that student to the plan as well. And if they wanted to add another student, they would select another student and add that student to the plan as well. They just have to make sure once they add those students to the plan, they click save. Okay, so then so once they build the intervention, it'll be the same intervention for all 3 students. The only difference is once they're entering progress monitoring data, they have to make sure they click on the correct student from here and make sure they're entering that progress monitoring data for that student. Okay, all right. So we have these 3 students in here. I'm just going to leave them there for now. But that's it for the MLSS plan tab. Okay, the next tab is the area of concern tab. So I'm going to click area of concern. Then I'm going to scroll down. And this is where we build our intervention, or we just document what intervention we're doing. This is very similar to the old R4 form we used to have in SAT, where the teacher would put what they're working on, what program they're using, the length of, actually, we don't even add length of time here because that's added above, and then what their goal is for the intervention here. What's nice in this tab is it's mostly drop downs. So if I'm doing layer 3 reading, I would just select a layer 3 reading as my area of concern here. That's my first drop down. Then that's going to open another drop down, the learning gap. So in the learning gap, this is going to let the teacher select what program they're using and what area within reading. Are they working on comprehension, phonemic awareness, phonics, reading fluency, vocabulary? And they can go through here. If they're using foundations, they would select foundations. If they're using iReady, they'd select iReady. If they're using iStation, they select iStation. If the program they're using is not here, or if they're using teacher-created materials, they would select other. So we're working on reading fluency other. And then they can describe further down. There's a notes section where they can just describe what they're doing. Okay. So since so I'm gonna just go reading fluency. I'm gonna see foundations reading fluency. I know these are actually fifth graders I selected, but I'm doing a second grade intervention here. So I'm gonna go layer 3 foundations reading fluency. I'm gonna select that as my learning gap. Then I'm gonna choose my intervention and I'm using the foundations, layer 3 foundations intervention lessons. Okay. So here's where I'll write my goal. So for my goal for reading fluency is for these students to um, the students will read 25 words per minute on foundation progress monitoring probes. There we go. All right. So my goal is measurable. I want them to read 25 words per minute on foundations monitoring probes. You can use a percentage here. Just make sure when you do write your goal that it is measurable. So if you were doing like, let's say you're doing math fluency, they get 80% correct on a math fluency assessment. Just make sure that when you do write the goal that it is measurable here. The next session here, minutes per session, that session's for intervention teachers to fill out. So if this plan is being written by an interventionist, they would write how many minutes per session, they'd write how many minutes per week. If this plan's being carried out by the classroom teacher, they do not have to put the minutes per session, minutes per week. No one has to fill out the end date either. The end date's automatically going to populate from what we selected in the MLSS plan tab. Okay, so the next one they do have to select is their monitoring tool. And I kind of already put that I'm using the monitoring probes. So I'm going to select that. I wrote that within my goal. And then the reporting basis is for layer 3, we're progress monitoring twice a month or every 2 weeks. This is that notes section I was talking about earlier. So if you did select other up here under the learning gap, or if you're using a classroom-based measure in here, or you're using another progress monitoring tool here, you could describe it further using the notes. So you can put any notes you want in there just to help clarify what you're doing for the intervention. But after you make all your selections, you click Save, and the Area Concern tab is complete. And at this point, the plan's ready to go. So as you can see, it's pretty quick to go in and create the plan. You're really only working on those 2 tabs. So now the teacher would start doing the intervention. After 2 weeks of providing the intervention, they would open their plan back up, and that's when they would come here to the progress monitoring tab and enter their progress monitoring data. Okay, so you can see for progress monitoring right now, it's set up for Liliana. So you would enter Liliana's progress monitoring data here. But if I wanted to switch to Isaac here, I'd have to click his name, and then it'll switch over to enter his progress monitoring data. So if you're progress monitoring multiple students on the same plan, just the teachers have to be careful and make sure they have the right student selected when they are entering that progress monitoring data. Okay. So first thing they have to enter is the baseline score, and this is what they were doing this is how they were doing when the intervention began. So let's say they were getting, like, this student was getting 5 words per minute correct. So I can't put 5 words per minute. The only reason being is these boxes only accept numerical values. If I click off of that, it's not going to let me. So you just have to enter 5. So it's really important that your goal describes what you're measuring, because that way we know this is words per minute. Or you can type it down here in the notes that we're measuring words per minute in the notes. The target score, of course, is your goal, so it's 25. And then we click Save. Okay. That's your start. That's your baseline score and your target score. After we get that entered, you can scroll down further. You're going to see a little graph here that restates your goal. And underneath the graph is where you will enter your data point. So since our intervention started what did I backdate it to? The 25th. So 2 weeks after the 25th is today. So it's the 8th, which is already going to populate for me because that's today's actual date. And let, huh?
We have 3 minutes.
And I'm going to enter, let's say she got 12 words per minute on this one. I'll add that. And you'll see the nice little graph. Graphs the score. This is the baseline score. This is the target score. And then it's very important that the teachers click save. Okay. 2 more weeks go by. The teacher reopens the plan and they enter that progress monitoring data, and it'll update the graph every time they open it. So we're really running short on time, but that is the gist of the MLSS plan, how to build the plan and how to enter the progress monitoring data. So do we have any questions? I'm going to stop sharing so we can kind of come back. And I'm going to...
So I did put some information into the chat to help with questions. I think one of the biggest things that teachers are feeling frustrated with is they have to reinvent the wheel. We're not asking them to reinvent the wheel. They're using the same intervention programs they were using last year for Tier 2. So iReady, IXL, it's new. IXL is new, but iReady, iStation, Foundations, Read 180, Math 180, all those are still feasible intervention programs. Layer 2 is more differentiated instructions and sheltered instructions and strategies and supplemental materials that they're bringing into their lessons. So it doesn't have to be research-based for Layer 2. Layer 3, it does have to be research-based and district approved. Do we need to fill out all the tabs? No. Only the 3 tabs that we told you, the MLSS plan, the area of concern, and progress monitoring tabs are the only tabs we fill out.
And if they're going to close out a plan, they do plan outcome.
And if they're going to close a plan, we do the plan outcome, and that's on that cheat sheet we gave you guys of how to do that, but we just kind of ran out of time. But the only time you would close a plan is when you exit a kid from a layer and move to another layer, or if they're placed in special education. Yes, we keep extending out the plan if there's absences, especially with like COVID, with quarantine. We just keep extending that plan until we get those data points. Any other questions? I just want to clear up a myth. So a lot of teachers are saying, oh my gosh, this takes 30 to 40 minutes to create a plan. The first plan you ever create will take you 30 minutes because you're trying to figure out what button to click. But about the 3rd or 4th plan that you make, it's down to 5 minutes or less. So just let teachers know, yeah, the first time it seems like it's going to be forever. But as you get in there and play and start pushing the buttons and know what buttons to press, it becomes very quick. And by adding multiple students, you're able to make one plan for, like 10 kids. So you're not repeating yourself over and over again. Okay, is there any other questions? I know that was fast and furious. Yes, Ms. Johnson, you have your hand raised.
Hi, thank you. I had a couple of more like procedural questions. One of my big ones is that if you're using iReady for your intervention, is it still okay to use a different assessment than iReady to gauge if the student is making progress?
Yes, yeah? So you can use a classroom-based measurement instead of an iReady lesson. Yeah.
All right, that's what I thought. We just started having conflicting messages at our school, which is fine. I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was one question. And then the other one I was kind of curious about, because teachers have the freedom to move kids between the different layers. So we have those 3 times a year testing. So if let's say I've got a kid who's in Tier 2 from middle of or beginning of year testing, and then throughout the intervention process, I decide they move back up to Tier 1. And then the middle of year data point shows that they're back in Tier 2. Do I just move them back into the Tier 2 from that? But then like on the conflict is, or like on the flip side, is there any kind of consequence for like having moved that child up to tier 1, saying that they're okay, but then the testing data is showing them not where they're supposed to be?
No. So when you put that child on the plan that you put them on, you're putting them on based of what you know from that current testing window. And then as you move with that kid throughout that semester and they move from layer 3 to 2 and 1 or wherever they're moving to, that is perfectly okay. And then when they retest, that would be more of a reflection time for teachers to say, hey, they're still testing in red, but I have them in maybe a layer 2 plan. And it's more of a reflection time for teachers to make sure that they're still appropriately placed where they need to be. And if they are, then the teacher just moves on with whatever they're doing. So you don't have to keep creating plans based on that testing. It's just a point to start with. And then from there forth, you use it as a reflection tool.
Okay, that sounds good. And then I just had one last question. It was going through just the drop down pieces, which are nice for us because it makes it easier. I just noticed that they almost seem a little counterintuitive, and not all of the areas that are in the SAP process are there. So I'm just wondering if there's like a general place we could put like feedback for future time. I know you can change it right away, but like for in the future, if we're seeing like a category that's not in there, is there a way we can give
Just
feedback?
email me and Keith.
Okay, awesome. Thank you guys. I appreciate your time.
No problem. Elizabeth, you can refer a kid to SAT anytime. You would just start layer 3 once you start that referral for SAT. So you can do that. So the teacher would have to start a layer 3 plan.
The list of students.
Oh, so to find the kids that your list of your students, it would be the academic support report.
Or the ones that already have plans.
And the ones that already have plans are in Synergy. And the walkthrough shows you how to find a kid that has an open plan in Synergy. So just look through that walkthrough. But the academic support report is in Advantage. And you would just go to Advantage through Synergy, and then the teacher would see their classroom list. Sometimes they have to filter by their class, but they should only see their list of kids, and then they can determine layer 1, 2, and 3 from that report. So your yellow kids are going to be layer 2, and your reds are going to be layer 3.
I'm going to paste a link.
I'm sorry.
Sorry about that.
So you can have 2 plans at the same time. So you can have a math plan, you can have a writing plan, you can have a reading plan. So there can be multiple plans going on at the same time. Remember, each plan is for one area of concern at a time. So you should only have one intervention running. So if you're working on reading comprehension, then you should only have one thing under that reading comprehension that you're working on. The repeat of the colors, layer 2 is yellow and layer 3 is red.
And that's not absolute. That is for the most part, that's just a starting point. But those kids need to be looked at. So I pasted a link here that talks about that.
So Liz, you have to request admin access if you want to see a whole school. I think you asked that question. Oh, Catherine, I'm sorry. So Catherine, you would have to file a SIS ticket and request district-wide access or school-wide access. So the data that's coming from the academic support is iStation and iReady. So it's K through 8th. High school uses the early warning and placement report. Jennifer, go ahead.
So our school does not give iReady. We're K5. We don't give iReady. We're a top school, and when we got iMesa, we stopped giving iReady, so we weren't giving a million assessments. So when our teachers go into that, it's blank. So are we just using like our iMesa data then as like the near target, on target?
Correct.
as our red, yellow? Okay.
Yeah.
At some point, is that data also going to be filtered into this dashboard? I mean, it would be nice to have it all in one place.
I can answer.
Oh, go ahead, Melissa. Thank you.
Sure. So I have talked to the assessment team about the possibility of adding this. And at this time, they did not want to include that. But I've expressed that that is a need for schools like yourself. So we'll just continue that conversation. And I'm thinking hopefully next year we can incorporate that. But as long as you're reviewing that data after each window and starting at that point, that's kind of where you would begin.
Okay, thanks for the clarification. We kept going in there and it was blank and we were like, well, what? What are we
No problem.
using? So thanks.
So it was the early warning report, and that's on the oh gosh, what's the name of it?
So
the early
yeah, no problem. The early warning reports and data is also on VersaFit or Advantage for secondary. And then there's also the placement reports that are in SAPR that are kind of used for scheduling. And what's nice about that for secondary, mainly high school, who doesn't have this academic support list, is that it groups students into various categories. So there's the intervene category that would be the group that I would look at.
Okay, Jennifer, your hand. Oh, no. Somebody else had a hand up. Any other questions? So, Nadine, you asked if they can still see a closed plan in the MLSS dashboard, and yes, you can. Nadine, I'm sorry, Amanda. You're muted.
Sorry. So when we create a plan, when middle school teachers, they're allowed to create a layer 3 plan in a big group of 25 students, as long as the data is individual for each student. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So then when they do exit students in that group of 25, they have to make sure that they go through that process to continue the plan only for certain students.
Well, you would if you were going to add weeks on, you would add weeks on, and it would add for every student. There's no way to just associate that one kid.
Okay.
But you would just, whenever you're ready to exit the other kid, you just exit them. You don't have to keep adding data. So if the kid is ready to be exited and there's still 5 weeks left of that plan, you can still just exit right then and there.
Okay. All right. Great.
So just remember, the time does not lock you in. Jessica.
Thank you all for this presentation. We appreciate it. I was wondering, our school is in real need of support with interventions within the layered plans. Do you all have any supports for interventions? I know that on the list of interventions to select from, some teachers are unaware of those different interventions and what exactly they are. So I didn't know if there's any training support with those interventions, or just any supports in general with interventions, goal writing, and just to help our teachers out with that.
Do you know, Jessica, do you know what is at your school for layer 3? Like what program?
We are not a Title I school, so we do have access. We're an elementary school, so we do have access to iReady and iStation. But we were just wondering, teachers are just really asking for support with interventions and really just pulling at different things to help them support their students within the layered plans.
Right. So we are working with curriculum instructions to try to bridge that gap between us and the curriculum intervention piece. So we're working on that right now. But as you guys need help or assistance, just email Keith or myself, and we can work with you individually at your school site. I think the biggest thing is a lot of schools are feeling that layer 2 is research-based programs, and it's not. So layer 2 is really your differentiated instructions, your sheltered instructions, your supplemental materials that you add in. So like elementary, a lot of teachers use like A to Z reading. They use their, decodable books. Those things are all interventions that they can be put in place. So layer 3 is where it becomes more of that research-based program, like your iReady, your iStation. I just want to make it clear that just because you're using iReady or iStation or iExcel doesn't mean that has to be your assessment point as well. So it's really beneficial when we're using that software materials to have a day where we meet in small group and look over the data and say, hey, Sally's still missing this concept. I'm going to work with the small group and go over this with, the 5 kids that are still missing that concept, and really work with them, giving them that human contact. And then that's a great time to assess them as well, so that you could have a classroom-based measurement that you create to assess those kids. So I think a lot of teachers feel like they're stuck using iReady scores or stuck using iStation scores. So the program itself should be used as the intervention, but to assess the kid, it can be something you're doing in the classroom, or it can be something that the classroom teacher creates to identify if that student's getting the intervention that you guys are giving. Does that make sense? So as you're looking at goals and programs, just contact us if your school is kind of like, where do we start? What do we do? And then we will direct you guys to the right people, or we'll come out and help ourselves. So it's a team effort here, that's for sure. But good question, Jessica. So Linda, for a list of interventions, we're working on that. But Linda, what grade are you talking about?
Middle school.
So middle school, for math, you have iExcel. If you're a Title I middle school, you have Math 180. If you're a Title I middle school, you also have Read 180. And then for language arts, you have the teacher tools PDF and iReady for language arts. So those are the district approved interventions. For writing, we do have Lucy, I forget her last name, Lucy Calkins writing. We have the 6 traits of writing. Writing is more what interventions that you guys come up with, because honestly, we're lacking in the writing program. We also know that language arts for middle school and high school is also lacking. So we're really working on, we've brought this up several times, that we need an intervention program for language arts for middle school and high school. So we're in the works of that. So hang tight, but those are the things that are available for middle school. Okay, Michelle Springer. You're muted, hon.
I was hitting all the buttons, but they were all the wrong. Sorry. Hi. So I have a question about once we get consent for testing at the meeting, everything's great. A couple of parents have then thought about it and said no, right? But then we don't get notified when that happens. We're not getting notified. So I'm wondering, how do we find that out so that we can make sure, I mean, like, the interventions continue, but we're kind of under the impression they're going for testing and we're waiting for the MET to happen, like asking, and we're not. Then all of a sudden, like, I bug the head teacher and she looks in the historical docs and it's like, oh, they declined testing. They revoked consent.
So I'm going to have to bring that back to special education and the DIAGs, and maybe talk to the relay DIAGs, and maybe they can be the ones to update schools to say, hey, this got canceled because of parent request, or parent didn't show up, or we're DNQing. So let me take that back to the powers of be, and we'll get an answer for you, Michelle.
Awesome. And then my other question is related to behavior points. If we have a student who has an IEP for reading, but we're doing behavior points, like general ed behavior points, do the special education teachers see those behavior points too, so that they can also do
So
it?
you would have to go into, the special ed teacher would have to go into the regular ed side of Synergy and
Okay.
go to the tree and then go to student view and then
Oh.
look at it through student view.
Okay.
That's how
Perfect.
you see multiple teachers.
And would they be able to track behaviors in their classes too, if we wanted them to, or not?
Well, they should be following the IEP and they should be having their own check-in and check-out for that IEP.
Okay.
So I would be careful with that.
Okay. So
And
we
really
focus
kids that have special ed IEPs, we just follow that. We wouldn't really be, that would take a step back. So if we were adding an area of concern of behavior, then yeah, the special ed teacher could track that data. But if they
Okay.
already have an IEP, we should be following that IEP.
Okay, so then they would handle behavior and we wouldn't worry about it necessarily.
Well, we would just need to follow that IEP, BIP.
Okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense. So if a teacher is just doing behavior points for fun, the special education teacher could view it through student view to see it.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right. That's all
And
I
then,
got.
Deborah, you just need to file a ticket with SIS and ask for access. So if anybody doesn't have access to the module, just file a ticket with SIS to get your access. Or if it looks like a weird access. Anybody else? Questions? All right, well, we will let you guys go. I know you guys have a full day ahead of you. We appreciate your time. We did record this. Melissa has the Google link that will be uploaded to. She put it in the chat. But feel free to email us if you guys have questions or concerns. We appreciate all your hard work. We know you guys are overloaded with everything else in life. So thanks for taking a moment to stop in and learn about MLSS. Yeah, we'll put the links back in the chat.
I think you might have answered it. I was wondering if we have a group of students and one student makes the gains that are necessary, then we can exit only that student and still keep going with the rest, right?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
And in a parent view, they will only see that one student. So you might have 25 kids on that, but in teacher view, parent view, they would only see their kid. So even though there's 25 kids on that plan, they're only going to see Johnny.
Awesome, thank you.
Any other questions? Virginia.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't turn on my mic. I'm Virginia. At this point in time, so I have students who are labeled as layer 2. However, they've been in and out of layer 1, layer 2 on the iStation test. Can I put them as layer 1 at this point in time, or not until that document is ready?
No, you can go ahead and do it at this time. That's fine.
Okay.
So if you have to use your professional judgment. If the kid's making progress, you can go ahead and do layer 1. That's fine.
And then also another one, we were told not to use percentages. I don't know where that came from.
Oh, yes, you use percentages.
So we were told to use can solve 6 out of 10 versus.
No, you can use percentages. The only thing I could think of about that is probably the writing rubrics, like 2 out of a 3, but percentages is what the diags would look at. The only times you really wouldn't use percentages is like letter identification, sound identification, words per minute. Those things are not really percentages, but things should be in percentages. Or if you're using the iReady overall score, things like that can be numbers, but percentages are what we need.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Donna, you have your hand raised?
Yeah, I do. My question has to do with the team members. You showed 3 tabs that you said the teachers were responsible for. What's the team members? Because someone in my school seems to have it wrong. I was told if I created like an MLSS plan for attendance that I added let's say the counselor, because she's the one who follows up to that plan, and that she automatically became aware that I have attendance concerns. But that doesn't seem to be the case, because I asked her and she knew nothing about.
So attendance is with Elizabeth Cahoon, that's not our team. But for the plans for the MLSS side of what I just showed you, anybody that has that child roster in their Synergy should be able to see the plan. So the art teacher should be able to see the plan. If you're in elementary, high school, middle school, all 6 periods should be able to see that plan. Now you can go to the staff participation tab, and let's say you want to add somebody generic, like you wanted to add the counselor, or you wanted to add admin, or, you know, I don't know, maybe one of your the librarian or somebody like that. You could add people to the plans under the staff participation tab. But if that child is rostered in somebody's classroom, they will see the plan.
Okay, does that mean they have to participate in it, or they just see that I made it?
They will see that you made it. Whoever is the person giving the intervention will be responsible for updating it. But that doesn't mean they can't help you out and provide that intervention in their class as well. But you would be the one collecting that data.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
No problem. Lynette?
Hi, I had a question. I had one of my teachers ask about the iStation and writing plans based on the iStation. They said in the past that they've been told that level 3 is proficient, and I don't understand iStation. I use iReady. I'm older grades, but they were told that level 3 was considered adequate, that they didn't need to write plans. But under newer information they're receiving is that levels 4 and 5 are considered proficient, and so if kids show level 3 in iStation, they have to write a plan for them. Is that correct?
So yeah, so that would be something they would look at, and I know what you're talking about. It's like that movement of the numbers of the iStation. So that kiddo might be scoring and saying that academic support report might say they need a red plan, but they might need a layer 2 plan if they're scoring on yellow, red on, 3 on the iStation. So I would really use that judgment. So whether it be a layer 2 or layer 3, let that teacher use that judgment call.
But that level does require a plan of some sort.
Yeah.
Instead of, right, I think because in the past they didn't have to write a plan for a child that was at level 3. And what's the rationale behind that, making that change from level 3 being okay?
I can answer that. I think it's already been a few years that iStation changed their performance levels. So in the past, it was only broken up into 3 tiers, and New Mexico has since changed that into 5 levels. And so it's just a more finite breakdown. And so now only levels 4 and 5 are proficient.
Okay, I guess what the confusion is it still shows up as green, like there's 3 colors of green,
right.
and so that green color, right,
yeah,
kind of indicates that they're.
I know
good
exactly
to go.
what you're talking about. So yes, in iStation level 3 is technically green, the lightest shade of green, and technically proficient, but New Mexico only considers 4 and 5 as proficient.
Okay.
And if you look at it, it's really only like 40th percentile or something. I think it's 40th to 59th percentile. And so that's just, those kids are not necessarily performing that well, if you think about it. So that's why.
And then I had
it's still up to them as far as like considering other things they see.
Okay. And then I'm trying to figure out, so we've been having a discussion around what is considered adequate progress. And so I saw on the form that you guys linked us to that adequate progress is a student making grade level gains. And does that mean that that like when we set our goals, because we've been using the iReady data and we've been using like that stretch growth as a goal, are we really looking at using grade level then as their target goal?
So you can use that target goal. So, I mean, so let's say you have a 5th grader and that iReady score is 300, which means they're performing at 300, which is the 3rd grade level. So you don't want to make a goal that says the kid will get to 500 in 6 weeks. That's just impossible.
Right.
But you want to say, they're going to get from 320 to maybe 360, that growth there. So that would be a measurable goal for that kid. But then when you're looking at it in the whole scheme of the child, yeah, they're making gains at 3rd grade, but they're not 3rd graders. They're 5th graders. So there's still something going on, or they still need more intensive interventions. So I don't want you to set your goal to 5th grade level. That's not where we should be going. We should be setting a reasonable goal for that kid to manage and get to. But just realize that when you're looking at the data as a teacher, and that's why I put that note into the plan that, hey, the kid's looking like a rock star, but that's because it's 3rd grade material, but this child's actually in 5th grade.
Right. Okay. Well, we were taking like that stretch growth, right? And using that and then saying, they want to reach a certain percentage of that given where they are in the school year, that by this time in the school year, this is where we anticipate them being. And so kind of making that.
Right.
And so then it's we're not exiting kids out of, right, until they're showing in the yellow, showing in the green. We're not moving them out of those.
Right. Exactly. Because we want to provide them skills so really once they get to that, 1 year behind marker, like, hey, we've moved them from 2nd to 4th grade now, that would be the time to say, okay, we can move them to a yellow plan or to a layer 2 plan, and then have that movement over that way. So yeah, you want to see the growth happening before you exit a kid.
Sure. And then I had just one more question. Is there, we've been really challenged with providing this variety of interventions. I'm a 5th grade teacher. And so, providing that amount of time and level of support for so many kids in our classrooms, is there any support out there for training on, like how to structure, if you've got a 90-minute or a 60-minute math block, to provide 90 to 120 minutes of interventions, for your level 3 kids is really a challenge.
So we have been, our team has reached out to curriculum and instructions, and we're really working with them to say, hey, we need help with the intervention piece of delivering those interventions and really helping teachers understand how to, like you say, model it. How does it look inside of a classroom? Because elementary is way different than middle school and way different than high school. So fitting that in there. So we have reached out and we are developing like a committee to work on that. So it's starting, it's in the beginning phases. My biggest thing is it's always, in elementary, it's nice because we can do more of that learning center type teaching where, you're the teacher and that one learning center, you're hitting those targeted kids, your low level kids, you're working with your low level kids, you're working with your average kid, you're looking for your high level kids. So that one teacher directed center is always helpful with elementary because then you can hit those kids. And then the nice thing about MLSS too is that it allows our intervention teachers to group them by skill set and not necessarily by grade. So that's been helping a lot of our interventionists with scheduling, because they don't have to just focus on, hey, I got to have all my 2nd graders together. They could actually say, hey, this K1 and 2 needs to meet. So it's in the works.
So, right. So like our school doesn't have an intervention teacher and our principal doesn't believe in it. She thinks that the teachers should be able to provide those interventions. So that's kind of where we're coming from, is like, okay, I have, 10 kids in level 3 and they have, 4 different, needs. And so, trying to manage, that has been really challenging.
And Lynette, if you can just email me afterwards your school, and then we can pass that on to curriculum and instruction that, that kind of training is needed at your school site.
Okay.
That would be helpful to me too.
Appreciate it.
Any other questions? All right, guys. Well, happy Saturday. You guys have a wonderful weekend. I hope you guys rest sometime. Take care. Yeah, a little bit of rest. All right. Well, you guys have a good weekend. Thanks for stopping in. We appreciate all your feedback.
Thank you. That was great. Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you, guys.